Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I've got the former AVP of Marketo, the VP of Sales of Engagio, and today the VP of Sales at Skilljar, Ray Carroll. Great to have you here with us today.
Thanks, Jim. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, likewise. I've heard much about you and just excited to have a great chat today about what you're seeing out in the industry. And one of the data points we're going to talk through today is that we are seeing an 8% drop in meeting activity this week after a couple of weeks of an uplift. So I want to get into that, but maybe to start, can you share a little bit about the Skilljar revenue organization? What does that look like today?
Sure. So in the revenue group of Skilljar, we've got what we call our SDRs RevDev. Was the name they came up with internally, just because our inbound SDRs or our inbound team is called SDR, and then our outbound team is called BDR. And so we needed something to refer to the group collectively. So we call them RevDev. So we've got 8 of those right now, 9 account executives, a director of sales, a director of sales dev, and then a RevOps team. So it's about a little under 25 people currently right now.
And was this group working remote before COVID-19, or is this a new experience?
No, this is new. And it's relatively new for me as well. When I was at Marketo, I was very much known as kind of butts in seats Ray Carroll, where if you weren't in your seat, you weren't working. But the world has changed, and I've seen that happen the last few years. So we're obviously all remote right now, but I think I kind of felt this coming even before the pandemic, and so I think that this just accelerated the inevitable. And people like myself and team leaders and AEs, we're going to need to learn to work a bit differently, because I don't think the world's going to be the same.
No, what has surprised you as your team has moved remote? What's good or bad surprising you?
I'd say that what has surprised me, both when I started working more virtually and also the team, the productivity loss is not that significant. In fact, it's not at all. In some cases, you could get more as long as you're hiring the right people, and as long as you're holding them accountable to something that's very clear in terms of what their outcomes need to be. Then it's got to be good management. But great people, and I was starting to notice this the last couple of years at Engagio. Great AEs, they can command working from wherever they want. And if the leadership team or the people that's hiring them doesn't trust them, then they'll go somewhere else that does.
I think, as all of us that have led teams, you've got different types of performers. Some people need the energy of the team around them to kind of inspire the work, or to train them up. Yeah. How do you coach? How do you inspire the folks that are becoming the great AEs? There's
a balance there. Totally. Yeah. So I was talking about that. I forgot with who, but so look, I'm becoming an old fart here. I'm 38, got a couple kids, been in a couple companies.
Like a dinosaur all of a sudden.
I hear you. So it's a little bit easier for me to get up on a soapbox and talk about how it's easier to work remotely. So I totally hear you. Like, if I think about myself in my early 20s, like wanting to make an impact, wanting to learn, it is probably a bit more challenging. We'll need to figure out how to make that equally engaging. Because, when you're early in your career, you're learning through everyone around you, right? Every AE you hear on a call, every VP that walks by your desk, like, you're watching them, you're learning. And to some degree, if I was earlier in my career and trying to climb the ladder, I think it is a bit harder to do. But if you're just focused on like doing the job you want now, then I think it's okay. Now, to the point you made, like, how do you get that energy going? I think it's a different type of leadership. Like, one of the reasons I decided to take this gig at Skilljar, they're based in Seattle, and I live in San Carlos, California. And I told the team, like, I'm never moving to Seattle. Like, just, it's not going to happen. But I felt this world coming where you need to be able to lead teams and create energy through virtual, just as you would on the floor. Yeah. And I've traditionally been a pretty good floor leader, but I hadn't had that much experience leading teams remotely. And so I was excited for that opportunity. And so this has just kind of accelerated it even more. Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think that for those that are used to getting promoted in the paths of the old world,
Yeah.
where, you feel the halls, you get the right conversations. There's a new generation right now. I think as Warren Buffett said, the American ingenuity will get us through COVID-19. I think a new group will figure out how to manage remotely in a way that will blow us away, a way that the communication's up, the way they share the data, in a way that you would be able to promote people just like we've seen. And I think that's the magic of what we're seeing right now. It's just completely new approaches to things.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Just one thing that's on my mind right now is remote onboarding. And that's going to be a very different nut to crack for a lot of companies that I'm willing to wager people are not realizing that that's going to be a lot different. It's doable, but it's going to be a lot different. And so I think that a lot of companies or sales leaders probably have some sort of hiring freeze right now.
Yep.
But in the next, hopefully month or so, maybe you unfreeze that, and then you're going to be ramping people up. But if you haven't really thought through how you're going to onboard people in this new way when they're not in the office, not seeing everybody smiling on the first week, you might get burned. So we're going to start hiring again at Skilljar, and I'm being really thoughtful. I am pretending that my CEO is essentially saying, hey, you hired these people, they're not onboarding quick enough. What are you doing? I'm already playing that conversation out of my head because I don't want to be overconfident. I think that sales leaders have to think through, you got to gamify it, you got to make it different and fun and have different content. And I doubt a lot of us have that stuff right at our fingertips, but it's time to start thinking about that now.
Yeah, look, I'm a completely remote onboarded new member of the Chorus team, right in the middle of this.
Yeah.
And after going through it, you realize life goes on. In some ways, everybody's a click away. You can talk to them. You can quickly learn. I'm quickly becoming a believer. Now, I look forward to getting back in the human interactions, but it is interesting how we move on. I had a quick question for you before we get into all the coaching. BDRs. Right now in this era, I feel like something's changing dramatically in the sales world. This is just my observation, but we had so fine-tuned this BDR function before COVID that to me, it became numb. And I'm curious, of all the roles you've worked on, how are we reinventing this BDR SDR group in this era? And what are you doing? And how's it working right now? Any experiments, changes that you're putting in place?
Yeah, I mean, especially in mid-March, outbound got really tough in that week where the markets were. And I remember there was 2 weeks where I just you could feel the team losing a bit of confidence. They were a little scared to pick up the phone. And look, I get it. It was tough out there. Executives are watching their stock drop. They're watching their 401ks drop. They're not thinking about whatever you have. They're thinking about survival.
Yeah.
But that did pass, right? And so I read an article the other day that I thought was really good about how in this new virtual world for at least a bit, reps that have a really good mindset will win. Reps that are mentally tough, reps that they want to become something and they're willing to in their mind, they're going to get it done regardless.
Yeah.
And so that skill set right now, being mentally tough is more important, I think, than it was. It was always important, right? Because sales, you get beat up and you need to be able to get back up again. Yep. And you can't care. I talk about I want to have a fearless sales organization where we're not scared of making the call or calling the CEO or whatever it is. And so I think that that's even more important. And it's not fearless in a ruthless way. It's in you're so prepared and you've mastered your craft so well that you can handle anything.
Well, to that point, one of the data points I wanted to get your perspective on, we saw the 8% drop in the week, but when it comes to first meetings, as well as the second meetings, the discovery call, we're seeing a drop on both of these, week over week. And it started to bounce back up since April 6th. And then a drop here. Talk to me a little bit more about this fearless side in terms of getting these first meetings. How do we help our reps to sort of put on that to get into that mindset and get out of just that motion that I think we had before COVID of just automation had taken over?
So just to clarify the question, so you're saying before COVID, there was lots of sequencing or cadencing or whatever you want to call it. And then COVID hit and, just kind of now what are the adjustments that we're making? Is that a bit of what you're looking for?
I think so. And I think it's still about automation. It's just that the messages have changed dramatically with how we use these tools is really what it comes down to. It's not about the tools being right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's about, how do you bring through that conviction in these tools today?
Got it. How do you bring through the conviction? Well, I mean, you had to be relevant even before COVID hit, right? Like if you sniff that the email that was sent to you, Jim, was not written for you, like you're going to delete it in about 3 seconds or block sender. Like for me, I was talking to our head of marketing about this. The way I think about email, and this might be relevant to some of the sellers on the call, is I see an email come in and I ask myself, do I recognize the name of the person sending it? If I don't, that's check one. And then I look at the company and I say, do I know who this company is? If I don't recognize the sender and I don't know who this company is, it's gone. Like I just move on. It just speeds. So, one thing I'm talking with our marketing team about is just how do we get the awareness of the Skilljar name out there so that people, they don't recognize the name of the person sending you the note, they recognize the name of the company and they might keep reading a bit. Because in our case, if you keep reading a bit, we legitimately have something relevant to say right now. We sell customer education software.
Yep.
And so if you're used to implementing your large enterprise customers on site, guess what? No one's going on site right now. And so people are scrambling to accelerate their digital transformation of onboarding and training. So we have something to say, which is somewhat lucky right now, to be honest. But, I'd say just focusing on that, but that's how I would get through it today.
Ray, in your business, Skilljar, a remarkable company. You must be seeing companies coming to you today saying, we need to onboard or we need to help train huge groups of customers in a different way. Are you seeing changes of behavior from your customer base right now?
There have been a couple bluebirds that have been nice. Then at the same time, there's also been deals we were working on for months, right, or quarters, especially up market, that are now stuck. So yes, there's been some good, quick, larger transactions when, there's some companies, I talk about how there's kind of 5 levels or maybe 4 of the type of company that's how they're responding in this environment. There might be like a Zoom, or there's a collaboration company called Mural that their business is accelerating greatly because of this, right?
Yep.
And there's companies, I'd say the next level down, that might be like, let's say Chorus or Skilljar, where like medium term, some of these changes in work probably helps us medium term. But that still doesn't change that in the short term, there were deals in flight that their businesses have now been completely disrupted. And there's not a whole lot we can do about that until it settles down.
Yeah, gotcha. I think that you're right. I think everybody's out there identifying, what's the business essential aspect of their product right now, and how to make sure that that's playing a new role or resonating in kind of a new era.
Some of it bothers me. It's almost, I was in marketing technology for about 10 years, and I worked for Engagio and kind of got that kicked off the ground. And look, whether or not Engagio created ABM, I will honestly say that, John Miller and the team there made that market cool with the help of a couple other vendors, let's say Terminus and some others. And so, but everybody right now is trying to say that whatever widget they have is relevant in COVID. Yeah. And I get it, we're all trying, but some of it's a little eye roll. You're selling some product that's way off the beaten path and somehow it's got to tie into COVID. And then the challenge with that is companies that actually are relevant get blended into the noise. And so I get it, we're all trying to sell our products, but in some ways, I feel like, let's say a Chorus or a Skilljar, there's something relevant to say, but it gets bogged down in some of the other noise that's happening.
Well, that's the magic of, I think that gets back to the heart of this BDR and SDR equation of how to break through the noise right now. But getting into, you're right, on the Chorus side, empowering the work from home has just been a huge, that's an interesting opportunity.
Yeah.
One other area I wanted to ask about was just, game film and sort of, how do we enable reps remotely and onboard them? You mentioned, kind of day one game film, using call reviews. What have you been your insights as you kind of look at your own game film right now? Are you hearing things from your customers in the market that have surprised you?
Yeah, there's been good insights. So, we legitimately do use Chorus for kind of the game fill use case. I remember pushing on Roy and the team there for probably years in the mobile app, and I know that's out now. And so even before COVID, I would walk to work in downtown Seattle, and I'd listen to a call on my way there and back on 2x speed. Yeah. But like right now, what we're trying to coach our team on is asking those second layer discovery questions. Finding the actual problem is always super relevant in sales, but it's the cost of entry now in this space environment. No companies are not buying software unless an executive has a problem and he or she is willing to solve it with technology. So, for instance, let's say a rep's having a call and they're talking about, I'm thinking about taking out my existing customer training provider because of the Salesforce integration, right? Some reps will be like, oh, cool, Salesforce integration. They'll write that down. But the best reps are going to dig and find the actual problem, right? So, oh, great. What is it about that Salesforce integration that's specifically causing you a problem? Who else is affected by that problem that's facing? What do you think is the impact if you do nothing on that problem? You have to do that right now. Or you're going to just get a deal that's curious, and then they're going to do a demo, and then they're never going to call you again because it wasn't a legitimate initiative that's underway. And so I've been following your briefings, and you've been talking about how more executives are joining calls on the buyer side and the seller side because business is not getting done unless they say it's relevant. Everything else is uncertain, and when people are uncertain, it's inertia. So like you've got to get to the exec. So that's something that we're really driving with our team, and I would envision is super relevant. Everybody should be thinking, who's the VP plus level executive that owns the budget for this project, and have they been touched in one way or another?
I think it's spot on. I think it's spot on. I had Ryan, one of our previous guests, talking about just how finance is in every deal, which we all know. But what you're basically saying is that you need to understand where this problem is ranked in order, because people are only solving the very tip of the top issues right now. So if we don't go deep enough to really know how big of a problem this is that we're trying to go solve, then it's just going to be an opportunity that slips and never goes right now. Yeah.
I mean, for instance, we have a concept at Skilljar called a Gen 1 buyer of customer training, which is they've never had like a customer LMS in place before. And then we have a Gen 2 buyer where they're switching off an existing provider, right? And so when I was at Marketo, people were on Eloqua and we switched them off Marketo. We had a story. Yeah. And here, those Gen 2 deals, there were some deals in flight. They really liked Skilljar. They'd prefer to buy Skilljar. It's niftier, it's prettier, but maybe the problem that they were solving internally wasn't recognized at the level way up. And if that was the case, deal's not happening, right? People aren't buying stuff that's 30% niftier right now, unless you've found the problem that makes it very clear that a switch is mission critical today.
Ray, I love your energy, and I'm curious, as you lead your team right now, how do you as a group kind of recharge? How do you keep it interesting? How do you keep it fun? But just how do you keep the energy going right now?
Well, I can't tell you that I would have the playbook if I was selling point of sale software to restaurants right now. Those teams, those leaders, they're doing the real work, because that's not a picnic. So right now, just specifically at Skilljar, we're trying to be thankful that we have something to say that's relevant in this environment. And so for me, my job is a little bit easier than, again, if I was selling point of sale software to restaurants right now. Those are probably the ones that really should teach a motivation class, how they're pulling it off. But at Skilljar, it's focusing on, hey, times are tough, but they could be a lot tougher. So let's not lose that opportunity, that it's not as tough for us this minute as it is for other companies. companies.
What I've been just so impressed by is when I talk to the people that are selling to restaurants right now, you'd expect that you're right. It's not a picnic, yet they'll tell you that they're able to sell right now because people have the time, or this is a good time to implement, significant systems. I've been very encouraged by and it's been genuine. I've been super encouraged by how people are getting through this, and it's hard. The numbers aren't all perfect for everyone, but people are getting through it. One last data stat that I wanted to end on is when we look at the AEs versus CS roles. So AEs saw a dip this week in their productivity. And then actually, sorry, the AEs went up a little bit since 2019, but the CSM role is the one that has been up and dropped a little bit. So maybe, putting out the fires are starting to calm down. Are you seeing this on your CS side? Is it starting to get more steady state, or are they still actively involved in, handling customer specific calls right now, issues and things that have kind of.
Sure. If I was looking at the data and making a guess on what could be going on, it could be that everybody kind of ran the playbook of, because the VCs are saying, love your customers, get around your customers. So everybody ran the playbook with proactive, like customer success messages, resource centers, and all that other stuff. And so people may be a little, all right, hey, I've worked with 10 other software companies. They've all run the same play. What else you got? That would probably be how I would explain that. And then one other thought, there was a slide you showed on kind of BDR meetings dropping over the course of the week. I feel like stuff starting after Easter has kind of gotten a little more consistent. It's not like spiking up, but it's not getting worse. And any drop might be people deciding to take their spring break in some way. Like I was going to take a spring break. I didn't because there was nothing to do.
Where do we go?
I just figured, hey, I'll work. But once a little of these restrictions get lifted, like I'm going to take a break. And some other people might do that too. And that might drop some meetings just because people kind of worked through spring break previously.
I love it. Where are we going to go? And so we just work. We get it done right now.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Ray, I appreciate you kicking off Tuesday with us today, sharing your insights. Love it. Wish you all the best.
Great. You too, Jim. Thanks a lot.
All right. Cheers.
Take care.